Hello, welcome back to your self-healing body, how to use emotion, energy, and intuition to raise your joy and vitality. I'm your host, Dr. January Suarez, and today we actually have a vitality expert here to join us, Joe Hassan. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, welcome to you too. Lovely to meet you.
You want to tell everybody where you're hailing from?
Well, I hail from an English village in the shadows of Windsor Castle in Buckinghamshire in England, but I moved to Australia. I went to Australia in 1987 with a backpack and essentially stayed. So I have this curious mix of accent that English people think is Australian and Australian people think is a bit English. You said you could hear both English and Australian.
I just adore it, and so just in case anybody wanted to know, that was the opening question.
So I'm actually in Brisbane, or Bris Vegas, as the locals sometimes call it.
Oh,
that's a bit funny, isn't it?
I did not know. Yes, I did not know. So Joe is a resiliency expert and really works with people to balance life and work. She works with a lot of entrepreneurs and business people. She is the creator of the PEP method, which she will tell us what that is all about in a moment. And you've also written a book about PTSD and your experience. Do you want to show the book right now, just so that we can
show the book? There we are.
Yeah, it's called Full Circle. And then what does the bottom say?
Building resilience in business and life from the jagged edges of PTSD.
Oh, I love that title. I love it. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. So to begin, would you like to share with us why vitality is so important to you? Why has it drawn you in all of these years?
Look, I've pretty much always been a glass half full person rather than a glass half empty. But I think now we need something that's more than just being positive, and living with vibrancy, I think, is something that I tend to do naturally most of the time these days. But I think it's something that we can learn, and I think that it's something that will make us healthier if we make a conscious effort to think about how we show up, because we're all linked. Everything is energetically connected. And so if I was to show up here today, like with my shoulders down and gloomy like this, well, how are you going to feel? Like, you're going to think, I want to talk to this person. Right. So it's the same whether you're being interviewed from the other side of the world, whether you're walking in a shop to buy shoes or a cafe to buy coffee. You want to be greeted by somebody who is energetically vibrant. And I think in this busy world where we are, theoretically with these things, we are supposed to be more connected than ever. Except that as people, we're going through this era of complete disconnection. And so I think, well, why not, show up consciously being vital. And I think it's not just for people to be vital, but businesses and organizations to have vitality as well. And in Australia, the official statistic for mental illness now is 1 in 5 people living with mental illness. I sometimes move in circles where psychologists and other health professionals talk about 1 in 4 people. So that's a serious issue that affects everybody's demeanor and the way they show up. And it's also a huge financial burden on society to have so many people not completely well. And so I think to have a focus for vitality is why not?
Absolutely. And so then you've developed this system, the PEP method, to teach people about that. So can you tell us what PEP stands for? It's an acronym, correct?
So PEP is an acronym that stands for Purpose, Energy, Pleasure, and Profit. You could actually think about those 4 ideas in any order you like. Over the last 13 years, I've mainly been working with entrepreneurs and small business owners, but the reality is leaders of any sort, or people of any sort of people can benefit from this idea of thinking about PEP. So and put the words in any order they like. So PEP, with the order purpose, energy, pleasure, profit, I think if you're not clear on what you're about, what your intentions are, what your why is, well, then it's very hard to make decisions as you move through the day. If you're not energetically aware of where you're at, and that doesn't always mean that you're alive and buzzing, it might similarly mean that you're exhausted and you know that you need to go to bed every night at 8 o'clock this week, or you need to just go and sit and look at the clouds for an hour, or walk in nature. So when I talk about energy, it's not necessarily that you're wired, it's that you actually know that you need to turn down and revitalize and refresh. Pleasure is in there because I meet so many people, particularly in the business world, who are just so busy, and they forget what they used to enjoy doing before they had a business. And so I think that there's also a link between people being exhausted and busy and not taking time for themselves, not taking time for fun. So I have deliberately put pleasure ahead of profit when I refer to PEP, because I think people need to remember to get back to having fun and being playful. In fact, I've actually recently started talking about that very notion and created what I'm calling PEP experiences, where I'm bringing business people together in a different sort of networking environment where we can actually have fun. So using the notion that an hour of play beats a year of conversation for creating deep connections. Because if you do fun stuff with people, then you're not talking about work and the ho-hum stuff that goes on. You're talking about that thing that you're latching onto. So
what would be an example of something that you would do for fun?
So we I've held a sound bath. So that was just an amazing experience where I had a sound therapist. We filled a room with these enormous Chinese gongs and sound bowls, and everybody was relaxed and just went through this experience of the sound reverberating through their body. And two people in their 50s said, "Oh my goodness, that's the most relaxing hour of my life." So consequently, something that they may do again, probably will do again. In fact, some of them are doing it again on Sunday. And then the next one that I held was kicking a foot bike. So that's something that I do for my exercise. A foot bike is like an adult scooter with bicycle wheels. So that one was more outdoors and energetic. And again, the people that came along might want to continue with that. They've gone and had trials and are maybe looking at buying their own.
That's brilliant. Creating a beautiful.
So it's like I'm giving people ideas of different things to do to get back to fun and play and pleasure. Next week, I actually have champagne tasting in a diamond boutique. Oh. So that's completely different again, because that's a more, it's an educational and enjoyable at the same time experience in a beautiful setting. So I'm trying to make some of them energetic, some indoors, some outdoors, some just relaxing, just to introduce people to different ideas to get back to pleasure.
And are you finding that people are still connecting and still making those connections, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then of course, profit is vitally important. Profit is something that as business owners, they often want to put first. But Sir Richard Branson said, in the modern world, there can be no profit without a clearly defined purpose. So unless you actually really know why you're doing what you're doing, then it will be hard for profit to flow ultimately. So there might be times when you focus on the profit for particular reasons at different times, but as a general rule, I think that to maintain our health and our mental well-being, I think that we need a balance of all of these things. So So knowing what our PEP is, knowing what our living with PEP, and using PEP as a decision-making tool. So as you move through the day and you go to do an activity, actually think about whether that activity is moving you closer to your purpose or further away from it, whether it's energizing you or draining you, whether it is pleasurable in some way or not, whether it's profitable in some way or not, or whether it's a cost. And so obviously, you know, there are some things that we do that tick all those boxes, but what we really need is at least one of them to be a positive. And if they're negatives, well, then think about how you can change that. Like, why are you doing that thing, that activity, if it's not taking you, you know, if it's not improving your life in some way?
I love that. It seems on the surface very simple, and in a way it is very complete and simple. And it sounds also like you could get really deep with it. I mean, it could be very profound.
Oh, you can be.
Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, you can be superficial, or you can be really deep. If I just show you this, I'm not sure whether you're able to see that. That's a model that I call the DNA of PEP, where really the symbols are in any order that you like, but then when I present them, that's the model that I'm using. And even though we've got symbols that sort of match the word, I don't know whether you can see there, each of those symbols has got a person behind them. So the extra P in PEP is actually people. Because we're people first. We're people before we're, you know, I'm an individual before I'm a mother, before I'm a partner, before I'm a business owner, before I'm a client, before I'm a supplier. I'm a person first. So in all of these things that you know, the purpose, energy, pleasure, profit, it also comes back to just remembering that we're people first, and that without looking after ourselves, well then, you know, we have nothing to share with others.
That's right. That's right. So did you write your book before developing the PEP, and PEP was something that came out of your personal journey?
Look, really good question. Nicely framed, because so my personal journey is what evolved into me creating this PEP model. And then I decided that I wanted to write a book. And because I've never written a book before, and I like to do things the right way, I'm organized and systemized, I thought, oh, okay, well, how do I write a book? I'm a people person. I don't want to just go and do an online course for how to write a book. I want to actually engage with somebody over the process. So I hired an author coach. So during my first session with the author coach, where we were to get the post-it notes and get all the ideas out of my head and put them on a big poster, and I said, oh yes, I want to write the PEP book. And she said, well, why PEP? And I said, well, because I show up every day like this. I'm vibrant and full of vitality. People regularly stop me in the street or at airports or wherever I go. People say, oh my goodness, you're so vibrant. You know, there you are in pink, and wow, you know, vibrant is a word that is used all the time with me randomly with strangers. So I thought, okay, well, you know, why is that? Why is that, and how did it come to be? And so when she asked me why PEP, it kind of cut straight to the heart of why PEP now. And that's because even though I show up like this, I wasn't always this way. I have been that statistic in the past. I guess I still am the statistic. So 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 people live with mental illness. And 21 years ago, I experienced post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was completely debilitated by that. It happened after I gave birth to my son. So I have a 21-year-old son. So after he was born, I I had postnatal depression, which was later diagnosed as PTSD. Now, that wasn't what motherhood was supposed to be for me. I had waited 10 years to have a baby, and to have the baby and then be thrown completely into turmoil and into this dark place where I couldn't think straight, I was overwhelmed, I was exhausted, I was doing that fetal position thing where I just, I can't leave the house, I'm embarrassed, I can't tell anyone. I endured that for a few months until actually we decided to take my baby back to the English village to you know, show him off to my family in the UK, because I don't actually have any family in Australia. So sitting on the bed in my parents' home in Fulmer, in the village in the UK where I grew up, the home that I grew up in, sitting on the bed reading this parenting book, because we didn't have Google back then. And as a result of reading the parenting book, I asked my husband to please make me a doctor's appointment. So at the doctor, I learned that I had postnatal depression, which was later diagnosed as PTSD. As a result of going to the doctor and being supported by medication and then a psychiatrist and group therapy sessions and acupuncture and massage and learning to meditate and journal and trying to live with gratitude and working out my other strategies along the way to overcome this illness. Well, I came out the other side somebody who, you know, I was always and realised that I had always been quite resilient in the face of adversity in the past, but really the few years that I took to regroup and refresh and ground myself and come out the other side, I just embraced like the new normal being showing up happy and vibrant. And you know, this pink has become a bit of a thing. This colour pink, this, not any pink, but this bright pink, this fuchsia or magenta shade, it makes me happy. So, you know, we need to do things that make us happy. So I wear pink every day.
I was going to ask you that. Is that true? You really wear pink every day?
It's absolutely true. So 95% of my wardrobe is pink. You know, I have a couple of black pieces and white pieces and a couple of cornflower blue accessories for a bit of a change every now and then, but pretty much every day, unless there's a specific reason not to, like at dinner en blanc, I can wear 100% white. And I went to this event supporting my son as a DJ last week and I wanted to hide, so I wore completely black. But normally I show up wearing pink in some form every day. And so now I talk about hashtag wear pink and smile anyway. And so that's actually one of my strategies for resilience. But if I say that to you, doesn't mean that you have to wear pink, although you could if you want to. But the pink has got a little asterisk. And so your pink might be blue or brown or green or walking your dog.
Your own pink.
Like what it actually means is you have beautiful pink flowers in the background there. What it actually means is find something to hang your hat on. So for me, that's pink. So it makes me smile. I have pink stuff around me in my home. I have, when I've run events, I usually have a flamingo or two around just for a bit of fun. In fact, I grabbed a couple of, got a couple of flamingos handy here. So this is a beautiful flamingo that came from South Africa. I've got every time I have a few different flamingos around the venue, just to lighten things up a bit, because life is too serious.
I love it. I totally agree. So finding things that bring you joy, that are fun, and I hear that the pink is like an anchor, like something that
the pink is exactly an anchor. That's right. So for me, the anchor is pink. For you, it might be blue, or it might be flowers. You might say, well, every day I want to have flowers around me, either fresh flowers or the painting, or you wear a flower on your resolve. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's find your thing, and that was one of my strategies for overcoming. I talk about it. It's not the major thing in my book, but it's certainly a paragraph or two, along with getting enough sleep and drinking plenty of water and eating the right food. There's a food well-being connection, absolutely. So PEP can embrace all of that.
I really appreciate you talking about the PTSD piece, because I think that when people are going through it, they can feel so isolated and so
so lonely. Yeah.
And the fact that, a lot of times, so I have suffered PTSD actually a couple of times in my life.
Okay.
And I also work with a lot of people that have PTSD, because I help them release the patterning from their nervous systems, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people that have not had PTSD think that it's just, soldiers returning from war, or, real extreme situations, which obviously that's true, but there's a lot of other ways that people can get that that extreme fight or flight energy locked in their nervous system.
Yeah.
It sounds like you went through a process. I just feel so passionately about this, so I'm just going to say that I think one other sort of misconception about PTSD is once you have it, you're going to have it forever. And you're a living example that is not true. I'm a living example that that's not true. So if anybody out there is going through it, you're not alone, and it's absolutely possible to move through it. And it is very, very important to get support, and different kinds of support at different times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And look, I just like to mention one other thing in relation to this wearing pink every day. Since writing the book and being more open to talking about it, because remember I said 20 years ago this was a complete secret. Even my parents didn't know. My parents didn't know until they read it in the draft of my book.
Wow.
And I had forgotten. I'd forgotten that was an extra stress on me, because remember, I'm in Brisbane and they're in the English village. So, and back then, 20, 30 years ago, a phone call was a really big thing. An hour phone call cost $100 or something. It was not like it is today. So I faked it. Every time I spoke to them 20, 30 years ago, I faked what was going on, that it was all fine. And that's not okay now. Like, I'm a very social person. I love the connections that I have with business people, who some of whom become friends, and friends who sometimes become business connections. And, our worlds are just so interconnected. So in terms of, being okay and not okay, we have an organisation in Australia called Are You OK? I'm not sure whether you've heard of that.
I haven't.
So it's something that was developed, I need to get the year now, I think it's 2009, and it's about having a conversation that might save a life in the time that it takes to have a cup of coffee. So I'm actually a volunteer Are You OK ambassador. So this is one time that I actually wear pink on the bottom and yellow on top when I'm actually speaking with groups about, if you find that there are people in your world who you believe are experiencing challenges and mental illness, to actually ask them if they're okay, and that just having that conversation might be just what we need to take them out the other side.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jo. I think we're probably coming to the end of our talk today.
Well, it's been just lovely meeting you and sharing with you.
Absolutely. And I know also, before you go, you have a free gift that you're offering to the listeners. Do you want to share what that is?
So look, I have a guide that I call, it's a short guide on why vitality matters for small business owners. So it is goes through the ideas as to, you know, why I think vitality is so important, not just vitality of people, but vitality of businesses, and how pepping up and embracing the ideals of knowing that everything you do during the day takes you closer towards your purpose, it energizes you, or gives you some pleasure, or is profitable to you in some way. It introduces those concepts. I should say, even though it has small business owners in the title, it actually is relevant for anybody, because profit can be very broad ranging. Sometimes your currency is not money. It might be that as a leader or an individual, the currency that you're working in is team engagement, or you know, audience audience interaction. You know, there are other things that leaders need to be aware of, not just the bottom line dollar.
Right, totally got it. Okay, thank you. I'm sure that there are people that are listening that will really be gravitating towards that. And of course, there's the link in the page. So, it's been such a pleasure, Jo. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful Australian day. And we'll see you.
I will. I'll go and have my day now. I think your day is coming to an end, but I'll go and have my day now.
Blessings. Bye.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Lovely to meet you. Bye-bye.
See you all tomorrow.